Hi, I decided to make a short video on replacing your tubeless tire. Uh, I spoke to a buddy of mine the other day, and he's new to tubeless or hasn't even tried tubeless yet. And so I thought of him when I thought of making this video. I'm sure there's like thousands of these on the YouTubes or Facebooks or wherever you want to look, but what the heck. All right, so what you need, of course, is a wheel. We're going to take that tire off. That is mounted tubeless now. Sometimes that's not as easy as it sounds, so it's worth showing that a little bit. And then you need a new tire to replace it with. I'm going to use I'm replacing this sort of gravel-oriented tire with this. I think of this as a good all-around bike packing tire, this Victoria Mescal tire. That's with the endurance casing. And then you need some way to send a bunch of air in there all at once. This pump has a compression chamber, so I can pump it up, pump up the pump to 240 psi, and then release that all at once into the tire. And that'll push the tire out onto the bead, and hopefully we'll get a video of that. All right, and then you need some sort of rag because the stuff in here is going to be messy. I use an injector, but you can buy the sealant instead of in a big container. You can buy it in 2-ounce containers that you can just inject the whole container right into the tire. That's no problem. Works well. I actually keep an empty one just in case I don't want to mess with this, but this is actually pretty convenient. You want to get a valve core replacement because chances are the one that's been in your on your wheel for a year or more is degrading. The little rubber bits degrade and get junk on them, and it gets less reliable. And sometimes you get the top of it bent. So get a new one of these. They're cheap. Just your bike shop will have them, or you can get them online. And then sealant. I have virtually no preference for sealant. Every sealant I've tried has worked great. I've tried 3 or 4. This is the first time I'm using this one, but I expect no issues. Okay, well, the first thing you want to do is take the air out of your tire. Pretty straightforward thing to do, of course. But since you're replacing the valve core anyway, and as long as you don't have too much pressure, you can just go ahead and take your valve core out. It can get gunked up, and this one apparently is a little gunked up. It's a nice thing about doing a video where you're actually doing it, and doing it the first time on this tire, so that there's nothing staged about it. You can expect that. This one's in really good shape. I may have replaced it, and that does happen because sometimes you get leaks, and the simplest thing to do is just go ahead and replace it, and away you go. And with tubeless, the air pressure is holding it against the tire, the rim, but it doesn't come away easily, even with the pressure out. You see that? I'm pressing pretty hard, and it doesn't want to come out. So what I discovered was you can use your foot and press that down good and hard, and once you get it started like that, it'll start to come more easily. See that? It took nothing at all once I got that started. The hardest part about me doing this now is keeping what's going on in the camera view. See, it's even the other side. Even though it's loose, it's still hard. So I'll do that again. Let's see, we'll get that in the camera more by doing that. I pull up here on the rim. Try not to put too much pressure on the spoke. And sometimes it's just enough to press down with your foot well. And that'll loosen that up. There we go. All right, so we released the tire from the rim, but we haven't taken it off the rim. And for that job, we'll just get a pair of tire irons here. Just like normal. Just like you would any other tire. And again, you know, how hard this is to do is going to depend on your tire and your rim. You know, this is this WTB cyclocross / gravel tire. Taking it off, as you see. But you might. So keep that in mind. Don't get frustrated. Take your time. If you need a third tire lever, that's okay. No big deal. Just allow yourself plenty of time to do this, because these little things can get a little frustrating. And so I got the tire right off, as you saw, and I'm just going to wipe the crap out of it so it doesn't spill all over. So good. So this tire's spent. We'll deal with that, dispose of that rubber properly, and we'll put on our new tire. Now these tires have a directionality to them. So, you know, I have the wheel in front of me oriented so that it's in the direction of travel, and then this is the tire's direction of travel. All right, but like I said before, the hardest part is keeping my work in the camera view. But otherwise, it's just putting a tire on. Now, these fit maybe a little tighter than those WTBs. So if it looks like I'm struggling just to get the first side on, that's because I am a little, and that's okay. I put these tires on many times. Many times. And the key is to not get frustrated, you know. Take your time. All right. Remember, the key is don't get frustrated. You can take your time. You can use a tire iron if you have to, but if you don't, that's the best. Always. Particularly, these are carbon rims. The plastic tire irons, I don't think are an issue, but all right, well, that was just the first one. Now you're wondering, okay, how is he going to add sealant and keep it in there? Well, the secret to that trick is you don't add sealant. You put the tire on before adding sealant. And one other thing I should have done that I didn't do was clean up the inside of that rim really well. Typically, it'll be full of gunky stuff, particularly if you use stands. And so you need to clean that out really well, because that'll keep the tire, the new tire you're putting on, from seating well in there and being able to move freely onto the rim. So this sealant, I think it was orange peels, left the rim really pretty clean. So it didn't occur to me to wipe it out anymore. Probably should have. The other thing you can do is clean it with soapy water and leave some soapy residue, and that actually helps. when I have a tire that's difficult, that's what I do. All right. Again, how this part goes for you will depend on your rim and your tire. Now here's a good idea. It occurred to me to put bike gloves on. That should help. All right, I put the one end of the wheel in my gut, and then I want to roll this on with the palms of my hands if I can. But to get to that point, pushing it over with the thumb works well, but see that palm pushed it over just at the end. All right. So I got the tire. So here's the thing. The tire is on. The rim should have been cleaned. I highly recommend that. The valve core is removed and there's no sealant in. So before I even put sealant in, I'm going to pump the tire. So I'm going to attach this tire pump, which has this particular one has this valve which you close, so no air can pass into the tire at this moment. So I'm going to put this on the tire with that valve closed, and then clamp that on there. And remember, there's no valve core either. All right, and the reason you do that, the absence of the valve core means that air can flow unimpeded into the tire, and you'll see what happens as I pump this pump. Again, the hardest part is paying attention to the camera. All right, so as I pump this pump, the pressure valve goes up, but no air goes into the tire because what I'm pumping is a reservoir in the pump. So it's just like filling a canister of compressed air. And of course it gets pretty hard. It takes all 145 pounds of my weight to push it down. So you see it's at the 240. And then I'll reach down and open this valve. And as that's happened, you start pumping. Just pump right away. Don't sit around and then you hear that, and that means it's popping onto the rim. You look at your gauge, air pressure steady. That, my friend, we call success. All right, but we're not ready to ride. Remember, we don't have a valve core in there. That's fine. But the next thing we do is we're going to add sealant. All right, so we got our sealant. In my case, I'm using an injector, which is totally optional. What I do is I also have empty stands, 2-ounce bottles. I'll take that pan eraser sealant and fill a bottle and use that. That's okay too. This is going to, of course, let all the air out of the tire. And at that point, the tire could come off the bead, but typically it doesn't. Just don't, mess with it. All right, so my injector's ready, filled. I got some sealant on that chair. All right. All right. And we got some sealant in there. Now what I like to do, and I don't know if this matters or not, but I like to just push a little air in there to just move the sealant out of that stem before I put the valve core in. If the now if during this exercise, if you're certain the tire has come away from the rim, I would go ahead and pump it up again without putting the valve core in, and repeat that process until it stays. But because the tire seems for me to still be on the rim, I'm putting the valve core in. And if it isn't, we'll discover that pretty quickly, and we'll just go through that procedure again with the valve core in place. It's not as effective, but it should be effective enough. All right, I think I'm still on camera here. I'm going to be careful not to press on the tire for fear of pushing it off the rim. All right, well, now, so I pumped a little bit. Tire pressure is coming down really quickly, so I think we came off the rim a little bit. Well, maybe not. This is a pretty big, high volume tire, so I just stopped too soon. Yeah. All right, well, I'll pump this up quite a bit higher than I will ride it. That's over 30 psi, and I ride this tire at 20 or less. So that's plenty. You know what that means, don't you? We're ready to hit the trail. We got ourselves a tire mounted tubelessly, and that's all there is to it. And in fact, what you're going to want to do now that you're accomplished at this, you're going to want to do two things. Take a moment here and just spread out the sealant in the tire a little bit. Roll it. If you can, now's a great time to go for a ride on it, because nothing moves the sealant around better than riding the bike, particularly on a mountain bike on a bumpy trail. And then keep an eye on it. You might have a little slow leak, and you just pump air in it, go for a ride, and it'll settle down in a day or two. Okay, I hope you enjoyed this little video. I'm going to just recap a little bit. You know, use your foot if you have to, just to step on the tire. You're stepping on the tire, and you don't have to pull much on the rim or spoke. It's just a good step on the tire, close to where it's on the rim, and that'll get you started, and it'll come off. And remember, you probably have to do that for both sides. And then it'll come off just like a regular tire. Use tire irons. You got carbon rims, use plastic tire irons. Let's see, what else? You know, a bike shop will just give you one of these, chances are. That's for removing the valve core. I didn't use the new valve core. Will I regret that? I don't know. I recommend just replacing that without thinking about it too much. The other thing is I didn't do that you should do is clean the rim really well after you take the tire off. All that crap in there gets in the way of getting a good seal. The sealant I happened to use was really clean, and so it just didn't occur to me. In any event, then the key is pump it up with the valve core removed. That before I would have the valve core in there, and it was hit and miss. Now just virtually every time on first try, the tire just pops onto the bead. And then, you know, leave the tire alone right? When you take the valve core out, yeah, you'll lose your air. That's okay. I mean, when you take the pump off, you'll lose your air, and that's okay. And just leave the tire alone, and it'll stay on the bead. And you put the sealant in, put the valve core in, pump it up, and you're good to go. All right. Thanks for watching. Bye.